Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. The National Assembly in Nigeria has finalized arrangements for the passage of the 2020 budget with submission of reports by the committees on appropriation of both Senate and House of Representatives. However, going by the reports of the two committees, the nation's expenditure profile for the new fiscal year would be higher than the 10.33 trillion naira President Muhammadu Buhari proposed to the legislature. While the Senate Committee on Appropriation increased the budget proposal by an additional 450 billion naira to bring it to 10.78 trillion naira, its House counterpart raised the budget proposal by over 260 billion naira to bring it to 10.59 trillion naira. The budget report will be considered at Senate plenary by the Committee of the Whole, headed by the chairman, Dr. Ahmed Lawan, through a clause-by-clause perusal of the proposal before being passed by the upper chamber. So now we have the culmination of weeks of budget defense by MDAs, with a lot of drama, accusations, counter-accusations, shouting at times. But it's all come to an end now. The National Assembly has given their own response to the president's proposal, and as the report said, it's going to be discussed by the Committee of the Whole and hopefully passed this month as promised, because one of the major points of the President of the Senate's campaign, as it were, when he was contesting for that office, was returning the budget cycle to January to December budget cycle.
Well, I think it looks like this time around we're going to have the budget passed early, which will be, a very good development, which will be in line with the expectations of Nigerians, because the late, passage of the appropriation bill in the past had direct effect on budget performance. I mean, since 2015, we've been having budget performance of even as low as 16%, as low as 15%. And that had been, a major problem in terms of service delivery and effective governance. But our only concern is that we hope that the National Assembly, both the Senate and the House of Reps, have done, very rigorous work in considering, the budget as presented by the president, because it's not just about speed. It is also about the quality of oversight that is provided by the National Assembly. And I make that point because this ninth National Assembly is fast acquiring a reputation as a rubber stamp assembly. All the guardrails are off, as a story indicates, I think in the Business Day newspaper. This President of the Senate is on record as having said anything that is brought before the National Assembly is in the national interest of Nigeria, particularly if it comes from the President, and it will be treated expeditiously. I hope the spirit of this speedy consideration of the budget is not, linked to that, because we expect, the National Assembly, the legislature, to be independent and to be rigorous in considering any proposal from the executive. The third point has to do with, the inflation of the budget. I mean, you recall that before now, the 10.30 trillion naira budget, the major concern had been, how do we finance it? With dwindling revenue, with, the opaqueness of NNPC, and with the unpredictability of the, price of crude oil in the international market. Hence, you see government running helter-skelter to introduce fiscal bill to be able to get, enough funds, either to set, they even want to take, external loan to be able to fund infrastructure projects in the budget. And now you have the National Assembly adding to it. And they say that, these are additions to sectoral allocations. We would like to know what the details of those sectoral allocations are, and whatever that is, at the end of the day, the Senate and the House of Reps will have to harmonize their positions. Yeah. The Senate is proposing 450 billion naira extra. The House is proposing 260 billion naira extra, where the position will have to be harmonized. And then you'll note that at the end of the day, the executive will still have to consider what the National Assembly submits to the president for his assent. And let's just hope that when it gets to that stage, there will not be back and forth, about whether or not the National Assembly has padded, using an infamous phrase, padded the budget, and whether the executive will agree, with the attempt to increase the budget. But we need more details in terms of what those additions represent.
Well, we all know that President Buhari is not reticent about refusing to have penned his signature to any bill that doesn't pass muster. So let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Well, but with the 8th Assembly, that was more about politics than actual consideration.
And the contents of the bill.
Yes.
Well, this next story relates to your point about the independence of the legislature vis-a-vis the executive or lack thereof.
Although, before we go, I just remembered something. Apart from the budget, the Senate also passed the procurement bill amendment. And, there are a number of controversial things there. And the most controversial, in my view, is the decision of the Senate to now say that local contractors, doing jobs for government, will now get mobilization fee of up to 30%. They've raised it from 15 to 30%. Even when local contractors were getting 15%, they were not delivering.
Yes.
There were so many abandoned projects. Now you give them 30% mobilization fee. And most of these contractors are politicians or politically connected. They will collect the money. They will not do anything. On the positive side, yes, maybe they will have to pay less on loans that they take from the banks. They have greater security. But I think the Senate, the National Assembly, must be more concerned about the performance of local contractors. What are the systems in place for monitoring and ensuring performance? And what do we do about all the abandoned projects for which monies have been paid and released and there has been no performance? I think that's also as important as whatever they do with the budget.
You're completely right about that, because on the face of it, it does seem to reward bad behavior. That's quite worrying. Now, for 21 states with pension laws stipulating post office benefits running into billions of naira for their former governors and deputies, it was a sigh of relief on Wednesday as the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos ordered the Attorney General of the Federation, AGF, and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, to recover all funds paid as pensions to erstwhile state chief executives who are also serving in the National Assembly or as ministers. The court presided over by Justice Oluremi Oguntoyinbo while delivering judgment in a suit filed by Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERA, also ordered the AGF to challenge the legality of states' pensions laws permitting former governors and other ex-public officials to collect such pensions. A total of 21 states had at various times promulgated pension laws allocating huge benefits to their former governors despite public objection. They are Lagos, Akwa Ibom, Edo, Delta, Kano, Gombe, Yobe, Borno, Bauchi, Abia, Imo, Bayelsa, Oyo, Osun, Kwara, Ondo, Ebonyi, Rivers, Niger, Kogi, and Katsina. Immediately affected by the order are 5 ministers in the cabinet of President Muhammadu Buhari and 9 senators. The ministers are Babatunde Fashola, Lagos, Housing and Urban Development, Senator Godswill Akpabio, Akwa Ibom, Niger Delta, Honorable Chibuike Amechi, Rivers, Transportation, Mr. Rauf Arabeshala, Osun, Interior, and Chief Timipre Silva. Well, it must be said that former governors Fashola, Silva, Orji, and I believe there's one more, have always said that they've never claimed this pension. This is a welcome judgment, and congratulations to SERAP, congratulations to civil society organizations that continue to try and hold the government accountable for some of their not very people-friendly policies and laws that have, come into creation for some bizarre reason. It's quite clear that all of these states who are owing money, the federal government is having problems recovering funds. These states say they cannot afford to pay the minimum wage, which is now law in this country. Then turn around and give former governors and their deputies ridiculous benefits, such as 3 new cars in 4 years, 100 million naira worth of medical treatment for themselves and their spouse. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. And then you say you cannot pay minimum wage. So I think this is great that SERAP really has, approached the court on this matter. The state houses of assembly, their job is to represent their constituencies. Their constituency as their constituents would never approve of this kind of thing. So it goes to show you just how under the thumb of state governors they truly are. And it appears that the court is the only means of rescue at this point. But now the Attorney General, this case, the implementation does worry me. The Attorney General at the federal level, what can he really do at the state level with regards to state laws? It has to be the state houses of assembly that really need to wake up to their responsibilities and claim their independence.
Well, I mean, the last point you raised is important, and that's a point that has been raised by Ahmed Raji, SAN, who more or less said that, look, does the Attorney General in any case have the powers to help the states to collect refunds from former governors and their deputies and speakers, and whether indeed, it can even hold the states or those governors accountable. He also raised another question, which is the question of fair hearing, that in the matter before Justice Oguntoyinbo, these affected persons, these former governors and former deputies, they were not parties to the suit, so they did not have an opportunity to defend themselves. But that's law that he's talking about. But another lawyer, Michael Zekome, SAN, has praised the judgment and commended Justice Oguntoyinbo for her courage. So the debate over the matter would continue. And, the judge has fixed February 3, 2020 for further hearing on whether the Attorney General has complied with her ruling or not. But you are right, we should commend, SERAP. I think this is, a demonstration of commitment. They've been on the matter since 2017, and now they have this judgment. But what is important is for the various state houses of assembly to follow the example of the Zamfara State House of Assembly and repeal, those pensions law, because the governors can say they collected the money under extant law in their various states. But let's take a short break. When we return, the morning show will continue.
Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. We're still on the news headlines. Still in Nigeria, the crisis in the Edo State House of Assembly worsened on Wednesday as the seats of 12 members-elect who have failed to present themselves for inauguration, as well as 2 others who didn't meet mandatory sitting requirements to continue as members of the House, were declared vacant. Deputy Speaker of the House, Honorable Yekini Idiaye, representing Akoko Edo State Constituency 1, said the resolution was reached at a plenary of the Assembly. The Assembly has been in crisis as a result of the dispute between Governor Godwin Obaseki and the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Adams Oshiomhole, over the control of the party in that state. Following disagreements over the convening of the Assembly by the governor, 12 members believed to be allies of the national chairman of APC have stayed away from the state legislature since inception in June, culminating in the declaration of their seats as becoming vacant yesterday. Now, this is a huge mess and goes back to the previous issue of the state pensions and how those were passed into law. The fact of the matter is that we do operate the doctrine of separation of powers at federal and at state levels. What is happening between the governor of Edo State and his former godfather or political mentor, whatever you want to call it, has got nothing or should have nothing to do with the operations of the State House of Assembly. They serve an essential function. Now those constituents are going unrepresented while this drama unfolds. I mean, it's really very disturbing what's happening.
Well, what you have in Edo State is very bad politics and gross misconduct on the part of the political elite within the APC. And that includes the national chairman of the APC himself, Adams Oshiomhole. You recall that in June, after the election of 24 members, 24 of those, out of those 24 members, it was only 9 members that were inaugurated as members of the House of Assembly. And of course, that then threw to the surface the conflict, the disagreement between Godwin Obaseki, the governor, on one hand, and Adams Oshiomhole, with the Obaseki group alleging that Adams Oshiomhole, the godfather and the national chairman of the party and the former governor, wanted to seize control of the Edo State House of Assembly so that he could succeed in impeaching Obaseki, who had already fallen out of favor with him. And then, of course, his group moved, quickly. And then at night, that Edo State House of Assembly was inaugurated at night.
Remember
with 9 members.
In his boxer shorts.
Yes, he was probably woken up from sleep. And then, of course, later the House of Representatives intervened, asking the Inspector General of Police to shut down the Edo State House of Assembly because it was an illegal assembly. So what you now have is that since then, there's been no peace, political peace, within the APC. And we've seen so many demonstrations of that, including attack on dignitaries who went to attend a convocation ceremony at the Edo State University. And, this just shows that the disagreement between Obaseki and Oshomole is not going away very soon. And it's likely to be of great cause to the APC. They may just give away that governorship position in Edo State if they are not careful. What is this House of Assembly of 9 members? What are they alleging? They are relying on the law that says that, a member of the House of Assembly must be inaugurated and you must sit for 181 days in a year. If you fail to do so, your seat can be declared vacant. That's the law that they are relying on. And they are saying that these 14 members who have not, 12 of them have not been inaugurated, additional 2 have not fulfilled the requirement of the law in terms of, sitting, their seats should be declared vacant. Then they play politics with it. They say, it's their constituents who are protesting. But those ones too have responded. They've said that, these 9 members do not even exist in the eyes of the law because in the Edo State House of Assembly, there's no quorum. 24 people were voted for. How can 9 persons take decisions on behalf of 24 persons? And they go for that to say that, look, they are disregarding this and that they have the support and the backing of their constituents. But I think at the end of the day, it's the people of Edo State themselves who we need to call their APC representatives to order. They may have been voted for, they may have been elected, but I don't think they are serving the people very well. It's the people that are shortchanged. And I don't see that level of outrage and concern within the Edo State community, either from the APC or from those who subscribe to other political parties. And that's what makes it unfortunate.
Yes, because the reality is that a lot of people don't put a lot of stock into the activities of the State House of Assembly because people just feel that the only person who matters in the state is the governor. This is what we're seeing. It's really a shame. Now to France. They're preparing for severe disruption as millions of workers go on strike in protest at being forced to retire later or face reduced pensions. School and transport workers will join police, lawyers, and hospital and airport staff in a general walkout. France's largest nationwide strike in years was agreed by unions unhappy with President Emmanuel Macron's plans for a universal points-based pension system. Authorities have been trying to put in place plans to mediate the disruption. The industrial action is expected to last beyond Thursday, and some trade union leaders have warned that they will continue their industrial action until Mr. Macron abandons his campaign promise to overhaul the retirement system. One opinion poll put public support for the strikes at 69%, with backing strongest among 18 to 34-year-olds. So here's another chapter in President Macron's rocky time in office. I mean, it will be a miracle if he gets reelected, but let's wait till 2022 to find that out. With regards to this issue of the pensions, what he's trying to do is sort of regularize, harmonize different pensions policies. You have in the private sector one rule, public sector another rule, different areas of the public sector, different sectors, different rules. Generally, the age of retirement is 62. That's clearly going to be amended. He wants one level playing field for everybody. In the private sector, your pension is calculated according to the 25 highest earning years in your career. And in the public sector, it's based on the last 6 months. This gives a lot of discrepancies. There's some areas that are more lucrative than others. He wants sort of a universal points-based system. But so much for equality, because the unions are completely rejecting that. They want to continue to manage internally their own systems and their own pensions payments and want President Macron and the government basically to stay out of it. So they're going on strike. Half the primary schools in France closed, about 25% flights cancelled, rail lines completely disrupted. It's going to be quite chaotic.
Yes, I mean, what the unions are saying is that the present system that is in place was in fact negotiated, and that they consider it to be of greater benefit to them than what President Macron is proposing. Now, in 1995, there was similar strike over, the pension system in France, and that lasted for about 3 weeks, resulting in disruption, and government had to reverse itself. So is this a case of history repeating itself? President Macron's position is that France has 12 different pension schemes, and that it is better to unify those pension schemes. He also insists that what he's proposing is fair to the people, to the workers. And then he goes further also to point out that, look, the ratio of public spending on pensions in France to GDP, is the highest, one of the highest, let me say that, in Europe, because it's 14%. And then he's hoping that, what he's proposing will be a better management of that system. But the point being made by the workers is that, look, under the existing system, they can retire early, by the age of 50. That has been increased to 60. There's a proposal to push it to 62, which is still the lowest, one of the lowest in Europe. In the UK, retirement age is 65. Now, they're saying, look, because they work longer hours, right, now they will be forced under what Mr. Macron is proposing to work up to the age of 70, and then at the end of the day, because he's proposing a points-based pension system, they will get lower pension. So hence the protest. Would Macron be able to prevent history from repeating itself? I doubt, because already it's not just the young people who are protesting, the old people are protesting, and the yellow vests, they're saying they will also join. Hence the slogan, tout et tout concerné, everybody on strike on 5th December. Tous en grève, le 5 décembre. That slogan that was shown on the screen earlier on. So we'll see what happens. Macron returning from the UK, from the 70th anniversary of NATO, now getting home to face a very serious crisis.
Well, what it just says to me is this is a person who won an election, and part of his campaign was this pension reform. And it goes to show winning an election does not mean that you were voted for because you were popular or your policies were great. It's so clear, it's increasingly clear that he won the election because they just could not stand Marine Le Pen, the right wing, the far right lady. Yeah, so really it wasn't a popular choice.
But in terms of support for pension reform, an opinion poll says about 69% of the people do not mind pension reform.
Just not his.
But they don't trust the government.
Yeah, just
so
not
this
his.
is also about a comment on, the people's perception of Macron's so-called populism.
Most unfortunate. Now, the U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday called Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau two-faced after he was overheard appearing to gossip about Trump. Trump tells reporters he believes Trudeau was upset that he broached the fact that Canada falls short of the NATO target of 2% of its GDP on defense spending. In footage recorded during a reception in London at Buckingham Palace on Tuesday night, Trudeau was seen standing with French President Emmanuel Macron, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, and Britain's Princess Anne, daughter of Queen Elizabeth II. Trudeau could be heard making what appeared to be a reference to Trump's long and unscheduled question and answer sessions with journalists. Let's take a look.
Oh, he's two-faced.
Do you think that Germany's too naive?
And honestly, with Trudeau, he's a nice guy. I find him to be a very nice guy. But, the truth is that I called him out on the fact that he's not paying 2%. And I guess he's not very happy about it. I mean, you were there, a couple of you were there, and he's not paying 2%, and he should be paying 2%. It's Canada, they have money, and they should be paying 2%. So I called him out on that, and I'm sure he wasn't happy about it, but that's the way it is. Look, I'm representing the U.S., and he should be paying more than he's paying, and he understands that. So I can imagine he's not that happy, but that's the way it is.
Why does anybody still speak in Buckingham Palace? You'll remember David Cameron had his own gaffe when he called Nigeria fantastically corrupt. Everything that you say, I think they forget their microphones everywhere, their ears listening. That was an indiscretion from Trudeau, but it doesn't appear to be being turned into anything more than it ought to be by Donald Trump. Well,
I mean, the basic rule is that always assume that the microphone is on. You know, and many presidents have made the mistake, from George W. Bush to Gordon Brown, to Ronald Reagan. You know, it's called the open mic gaffe, and that's what has happened here. Well, for Boris Johnson, if I was him, I'd call Trump and apologize. He didn't defend his friend. Well, he said it's nonsense that he didn't even know there's anything like that.